Hello and welcome. In today's video, we'll be talking about the Respondus Lockdown Browser and how to prepare your course so that your students are aware and able to install and use the Lockdown Browser for any tests you choose to set it up for. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is the Respondus Lockdown Browser? Well, the Respondus Lockdown Browser is a custom browser that locks down the testing environment in Blackboard Learn. When students use the Lockdown Browser to take a Blackboard test, they are unable to print, copy, go to other websites, access other applications, or close a test until it is submitted for grading. Tests created for use with the Lockdown Browser cannot be accessed using any of the standard browsers, such as Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, and so forth. So let's begin. Let's first access the Respondus Lockdown Browser link located in the Course Tools menu here on the left. So by expanding the Course Tools menu, you scroll down and you click on Respondus Lockdown Browser. Now what you'll notice here is that you have a welcome video. You also have video tutorials, a getting started areas, which will give you a link to the videos as well. Also, what's important here is a second point, which is information that you'll be adding to your syllabus and or your course description and announcement, for instance. This includes information on the requirements of the Lockdown Browser, download instructions for your students, as well as important accompanying information. And of course here, there's a recommendation that we create a practice test. And up top, there's also resources. There's a quick start guide here. There's some documentation for troubleshooting issues and getting support, information about attending free training webinars, as well as current information on Respondus news. Please do spend some time in here and get familiar with the Respondus Lockdown Browser. Now, in order to inform your students about the Respondus Lockdown Browser, how to download it, and how it will be used to take a test within your course, we recommend setting up a content folder in your Getting Started area, as well as having an informative announcement. Here's an example of how this should look. Once you create the content folder, edit the folder, and first add the title. So you create the content folder by clicking Build Content and selecting Content Folder. Now, once you create that content folder, you can simply edit that content folder, add your title, and then add language to support the click-through. In this case, we added the language. Please click on the title link above, Respondus Lockdown Browser Setup, in order to access setup information regarding the Respondus Lockdown Browser. Click Submit. Now that that's initially set up, you click through, and you'll notice that we added the language from the Respondus Lockdown Browser dashboard under Getting Started Selection 2, which was that information tagged to our syllabus and course description, if you remember. In addition to the language here, which is the browser requirements, a link to it, as well as a link to download the actual Lockdown Browser for your students, I recommend attaching the Student Quick Start Guide up here as well. Now, the second thing I'd like for you to do here, as we mentioned, is to create a practice test. Now, I've created a practice test, but we need to add it in this content folder as well. And we do that by clicking the Assessments tab here at the top and then clicking Test. Now, within your tests, you'll see all your tests listed, but now you'll notice that I created one called Respondus Practice Test. Now, this practice test consists of one question and one question only. And it's simply just to test the browser functionality for the student. So now let's select the Respondus Practice Quiz here, as I've done, and click Submit. Now this will add it to our initial content area. Now, with the Respondus Practice Quiz, I'd like for you to add a title here. I always change the color of the link because I like to match it to a hyperlink to show the students that it's an actual click-through event. Add the language here. Please use this practice quiz to test and ensure that your Respondus Lockdown Browser is working correctly. Make sure that it is available to students by clicking the Yes here. Make sure to set it up for unlimited attempts. And then also make sure you do not include it in the test center score calculations. We don't want to include this in the grade center. And then click Submit. And you'll notice our Respondus Lockdown Practice Quiz is set up here. So now that we've set up the content folder to include the information for the students, let's go ahead and set up the announcement as well. And you do so by accessing the course menu again and clicking Announcements. So you can see here, I initially set up an announcement. And what I recommend inside of the announcement itself is that obviously you name its something familiar so the students will realize that it is exactly for the Respondus Lockdown Browser setup. Add the language. Then add the language. Please navigate and open the content folder under Getting Started. Call the Respondus Lockdown Browser setup. Use exact language. Be specific. I like to create a course link in there as well. And you can see I created the course link to the Getting Started Respondus area. So in the announcement page itself, the students can simply click this tool link or course link, and it'll bring them directly into the content folder for the Respondus Lockdown Browser. I also recommend sending this announcement more than once so the students are really familiar with what's expected of them. Now let's take a look at where to go to set up an exam, test, or quiz to use the Respondus Lockdown Browser. In order to do so, we're going to go under Course Tools, and we're going to select the Respondus Lockdown Browser tool. Again, a lot of information. Please familiarize yourself with these different areas. Now, in this instance, we're going to continue to the Lockdown Browser. Now here, as located, you're going to see tests that are currently available to you. You can see here the Respondus Practice Quiz is listed. But next to it, you'll notice that it is currently not required. But we want to require this. So in order to require the Lockdown Browser with a specific quiz, test, or exam, you simply click this downward facing arrow to the left of the practice quiz. And you click on Settings. That will expand the menu for the Respondus Lockdown Browser for this practice quiz. Now you can see currently it says don't require Respondus Lockdown Browser for this exam. Well, we're going to require it by clicking this button. You'll notice when we require it, we have some other options that become available. Now in this first area, it's optional. You can create a password for your students to enter the exam, which I don't recommend. You also have some advanced settings here. Now for different programs such as mathematics, you may want to enable the calculator to be used. You can enable printing from the toolbar, which I don't recommend. You can allow access to specific external web domains depending on the course. You can allow students to take this exam with an iPad, and you can also lock the student into the browser until the exam is completed. I would say unless there aren't any special circumstances, I would leave the advanced settings alone and simply click Require Respondus Lockdown Browser for this exam. So at this point, we're just going to click Save and Close. And now you'll notice that the exam is required. This concludes today's tutorial on the Respondus Lockdown Browser from the instructor perspective. Just to recap some of the things we went over, we created a content folder which included information for the student about the Lockdown Browser, how to download it, accompanying documentation and such. We created a practice quiz which will allow the student to test their Lockdown Browser prior to taking an exam within the course. We also created an announcement to support the Respondus Lockdown Browser, and within that announcement we created a course link to link us back to that area in our Getting Started. If you have any questions or concerns in the future, or if you have any issues using the Lockdown Browser, please don't hesitate to contact the Kaiser University Instructional Design Team.